Rumors of Ross Chastain's demise were greatly exaggerated. Let's get into it. Coming up next. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing good today. All right, Ross Chastain wins the race in Nashville, breaking out of basically the slump he was in. A lot of people had a lot of conjecture saying, hey, it's because Hendrick's giving him lesser motors or anything like that. We'll actually get into the reason that Ross Chastain at least gave for being into the slump. But first things first, he wins the pole. That is the first pole for him. It is the first pole for Trackhouse, and he gets the job done from the pole. He also did it in a way that he hadn't done, I guess, in the past. He raced very aggressively, but he didn't get into anybody, which is what a lot of people that have criticism for Ross Chastain had been saying. They like the way he races. They just wish he would pick his spots and do it more cleanly instead of just always roughing somebody up and getting into them from their perspective. Now, the Ross Chastain fans, which there are quite a few of, they love what Ross Chastain does anyway. He's always bringing some type of excitement to the track, but this time he brought the excitement to the track. And he also did it in a much more clean manner than most people, I guess, were expecting or were used to. And that brings me to the post-race speech. A lot of people have compared Ross Chastain to Ernie Irvan, who was also a very aggressive driver. And Ernie Irvan had a very famous speech before a race in the drivers' meeting where he apologized to everybody and said he wasn't going to drive like that anymore. The post-race interview on not pit road, but on the racetrack itself, which this is another thing, it should have been done in victory lane. But anyway, in the interview there, he said the noise had gotten to him, and he said in particular Rick Hendrick coming down on him and saying what he said about him had really affected him, and that he does care about what people say, so that did affect him. So that basically right there is him telling you the previous slump where he had been running not as good. He had been racing basically too conservative, and he said he snapped out of it here because you heard all throughout the broadcast, at least after the race, Kyle Petty, Dale Jarrett, all those guys said when Ross came up to him and they were talking to Ross before the race started, he said, you're going to see the real Ross Chastain today, and that's what we saw. We saw a lot of aggressiveness, but it was measured aggressiveness, so you see him growing as a driver. And he said we all as human beings evolve in the post-race when he was actually sitting with Dale Jarrett and Kyle Petty, which shout out to NBC. We're just not used to a post-race. We actually got a post-race in this particular deal, so that was cool too. But yeah, he said he has evolved as a driver, and this might be the new Ross Chastain. All right, let's get on to the next story, which is the interior wall, of all things. So you saw Ryan Blaney, there was a bunch up on the restart. Brad Keselowski missed a shift and didn't get going, basically, is what happened. Bunched up the field behind him, and Kyle Busch runs into Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney goes sailing into the infield, isn't able to catch and gather up his car, and he hits the infield barrier. It looked like a pretty wicked lick or whatever like that. So when he gets out of the car, that just would have been the story right there. But when he gets out of the car, he makes comments to the media that he thinks all the interior walls at every track should have the safer barrier on them as well. I think he's actually right about that, because that is basically the last area as far as the Cup Series goes where the safer barriers need to be placed at these racetracks. So I think it's a reasonable request going forward that these tracks get fitted with safer barriers on the inside walls too, especially the 1.5 miles and faster tracks like that. It just makes good common sense, and hopefully, Ryan Blaney's okay. He looked like he was okay after the race, but you never know. So but yeah, he was calling for safety, so that was another story, and they definitely harped about it on the broadcast itself. So hopefully they get the safer barriers put on the inside walls. Good race for Ross Chastain, obviously winning from the pole. Martin Truex Jr. had a good race too. He was solid the entire race. Just didn't have the long run speed of Ross Chastain. It didn't look like any of the Toyotas quite basically had the same long run speed that Ross had. Denny Hamlin also had a good race. Chase Elliott there. Then you got Kyle Larson, William Byron, Christopher Bell, who had a really good run going, but just didn't have the speed to get up front like the other Toyotas, but he definitely had a good race going. Eric Jones, big race for Eric Jones. That group over there at Legacy needed that run right there. Eric Jones bringing it home. Then you got Kyle Busch and AJ Allmendinger. AJ Allmendinger definitely needed, that's another one that needed a good run, but Kyle Busch, with that off-sequence pit strategy, they made the most of those new tires and got them in there. And then, of course, you've got Brad Keselowski, Daniel Suarez, and Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon, another team that needed a good finish. And Brad Keselowski, despite missing the shift, gets a good finish. And Daniel Suarez, the other Trackhouse car there. So a good finish, just a good week for Trackhouse itself. All right, now on to bad race. Bad race for a lot of Ford drivers. Penske looked way off. They had some speed early on in the race, but it looked like as the race went on, that speed went away, so it was a bad race, you got to say, for Team Penske, especially because their best car got wrecked out, and I don't know what happened to Joey Logano, but he faded pretty bad toward the end of the race there. Bad race, once again, for Stewart HAAS. Stewart HAAS was never in this. Kevin Harvick was making a run. Looked like he might have had a second or third place car at one point. Blew that tire. That was the end of it for Stewart HAAS. The rest of the Stewart HAAS cars, they were basically also rans. Chase Briscoe in particular finishing 31st. And then after the race, Daniel Suarez was trying to celebrate with his teammate, and Chase Briscoe, I guess out of frustration, was trying to pass everybody on the outside during the cool-down lap and ran into the 99. So insult to injury there for Chase Briscoe and Stewart HAAS Racing. And getting off the Fords here, it was a bad race for Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick actually looked like a guy that might have had the same kind of speed that Ross Chastain had. It would have been interesting to see how that played out had he not had that loose wheel penalty. So that took Tyler Reddick out of the race. So there are your bad races. And, of course, I already mentioned Ryan Blaney with the wall situation, wanting the new safer barrier. And one or two more things to clean up here. The previous video, when I was talking about Nashville, I said it looked like they were trying to enlarge the track. I was actually wrong about that, and I was set straight in the comments. They have I was reading the comments, and they said they should have just left the quarter mile and repaved it. And I was confused by that, because I thought they were trying to make the track bigger, but my friends in Tennessee that watch the channel, they helped out in the comments, which is the great thing about YouTube. They got me straight there. They told me that they were actually talking about the repave on the inside of the field. That's where the quarter-mile track is. So never having been to Nashville, I didn't know there were two tracks. There's a quarter-mile track on the inside and then the bigger track on the outside. So they're not expanding it to make it bigger. So honest mistake there, but appreciate everybody in the comments getting me straight on that one. Look, 600, 607, or this might be the 608th video. Every once in a while, you're going to make a mistake. When you make the mistake, you just got to come out and own it, and that's what I'm doing here. That's all you can do. So, all right, trying to get you straight on that one. All right, that's all I got for you on this one. If you made it this far, feel free to subscribe down below. All your subscriptions mean a lot to the channel. If you're already subscribed, you know I appreciate you as well. If you got a comment, question, or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section. And if you want to help out the channel, we do have a merch store. It is right here. The link is down in the description. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.